Montana Talks here. Live and local. This is Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
Broadcasting live across the great state of Montana. Powered by the Montana Electric Cooperative Association. Your Montana Electric Cooperative. They do much more than keep the lights on for you. This is Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
All right, John, I want to go back. I want to go way back. Back in time. Can I go back in time for you, John, for just a couple of seconds here?
We got to get the gigawatts up here on the roof here. You got to get the
get some disco balls.
Got to get going 88 miles an hour.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to go back in time. Actually, I'm only going to go back about 6 days. Listen to the ladies of The View 6 days ago. Well, probably about 7 days ago, but I had the audio ready to roll 6 days ago. Here you go. This was, I think, last week.
I think to make a point, to prove a point, put him in the clink. Oh, why not? Put him in the clink.
I don't want this to sound like I'm doing wishful thinking.
Yes.
But which prison would be best?
I know which one.
I'm going to give you Michael. Well, that's what I asked. Number one is Rikers. But, you know, I'm okay if he goes to Alcatraz and they reopen it.
All right, John, you can just hear the giddiness in the voices of the ladies of The View, or the women of The View. I shouldn't say ladies here. They are so excited. They have been cheerleading all of these political persecutions against Donald J. Trump. Listen to how excited they were. But, John, apparently the crazy liberal ants of The View are crying uncle. Have you heard this?
Yeah, isn't that amazing? In less than a week now, I think they're rethinking that position, aren't they, Aaron?
I think so. Let me find the soundbite for you here. Oh, yeah, here we go. The Daily Caller has it for us.
Our incumbent president stepped in to do a speech on anti-Semitism. They cut to the speech, came back and talked about Donald Trump. So what's happening here is Donald Trump is Donald Trumping us. It's deja vu from 2016. And the coverage, the irony is the people covering that news thinks they're getting one up on Donald Trump while they're handing him a lot of votes because of the coverage. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've been saying, I agree with you. I've been saying from the beginning, I actually think this trial is somewhat helping Donald Trump.
Well, golly, John, 6 days ago they were laughing and cheering about throwing Donald Trump in the clink, and now they're like, the media needs to stop covering these Trump trials. They're only helping Trump.
Like I said, it is kind of a mismatch, and it gets kind of old beating up on these lunatics in The View because they're just so incredibly stupid and hateful and racist. It's almost just too easy. But what I find interesting is the clapping seals out there in their audience. You wonder, do any of those people in that audience actually have their shoes tied? You know, do they have their zippers zipped up? I mean, do these people know how to get in out of the rain? I mean, these are really just the dumbest people on the planet.
But, here they were cackling a week ago about, throw Donald Trump in the clink. And now the latest polling shows Donald J. Trump leading in 5 battleground states. The latest polling shows Joe Biden shedding black voters, shedding Hispanic voters. And now, all of a sudden, the crazy liberal ants are crying uncle.
Well, see, we all know, and like my buddy Blue says all the time on the podcast, if this was an election in 1980, if it was a free and fair election with same-day voting and no mail-in cheating, Trump would win this by...
Taking your calls live. 406-294-0970. Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
Yeah, we're taking your phone calls. Plus, we got John Jackson, the Joker from Twitter, sidekicking with us here this morning as well. He's a retired federal law enforcement officer, lives here in Montana. He's got over 100,000 followers on X. Always great to have John with us here, but we're taking your calls. Let's go to Tamara in Billings first up. Tamara, good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just going to throw out there a resource for to help fill out these ballots. They helped me out the last time. That's Montana Family Foundation under Jeff Laszloffy.
Yeah, great outfit.
Yes. They're not able to help out on everything, but they've been able to help me out on several candidates.
One resource they have, which is really helpful, is when it comes to judges and judicial candidates, they simply follow the money. They say, this is who these candidates have given campaign contributions to. So if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you can see whether, these judicial candidates have given mostly to Democrats or Republicans. So it's one of the rare windows of insight that we get into what their philosophy might actually be on the bench, right?
Correct. Yes, they're very good.
Yeah. And then I'm assuming...
That's all I got to say.
Okay, perfect. Well, well said, Tamara. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, Jeff Laszloffy and the Montana Family Foundation, absolutely incredible organization. John, that is one of the questions that listeners always have every election is, who do we vote for these judges or these Supreme Court races? Because, being nonpartisan races, it's hard to get any information on these folks.
And once again, yet another existential crisis here in Montana with our judiciary. As you have seen for the past 4 years, and some of them have openly stated their entire mission is to scuttle everything that the Montana legislature and the governor do. So they are not out there acting as true judges. They are partisan hacks wearing robes, and we have got to start putting better people in those positions.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this climate lawsuit nonsense where they want to inject climate change into every decision, which will be used to attack agriculture, oil, gas, coal, you name it. I mean, what they will attack with that type of authority would be endless. Well, they're forcing it through the courts and through leftist Supreme Court justices. That's why, I'm really excited to see great candidates like Corey Swanson and Judge Dan Wilson running for two of these Supreme Court cases right now, myself in particular. All right, next up on the phone lines, we've got John in Helena listening to KCAP. John, thanks for the call. What's on your mind?
I wanted to ask you, Aaron, who do you support for the congressional race? And I wanted to express my support for Miss Stacey Zinn.
So you're supporting Stacey Zinn, yeah. So when it comes to these primaries, I try not to get too involved in Republican primaries. I mean, as you know, I've been very outspoken when it came to the U.S. Senate race because I believe that is such an important must-win race. Whereas I feel like for the Eastern Congressional seat in particular, whichever Republican wins that seat is most likely going to win the general election because it's such a heavily favored Republican district. So, but I'll tell you what, I'm a big fan of Stacey Zinn. You mentioned her. I mean, former head of the DEA. She's just an absolute, pardon my French, she's a badass. And I think, when it comes to folks that are looking for, a fighter, kind of like what Matt Rosendale has fought when it comes to spending, I think she's going to be that type of an, anti-establishment fighter. But hey, you've also got, Elsie Arntzen in there who stood up and pushed back against these school mask mandates and these school shutdowns. She was in the right position at the right time. You've got, Troy Downing, who, served his country in Afghanistan, a fellow veteran, business background. You've got Ken Bogner, a Marine, who's got some great things across the finish line in the legislature. And then, I think for people who maybe want to see more stability in the House of Representatives, given all the turmoil in the last couple of years, you got, former Congressman Danny Rieberg with 12 years of seniority that he carries with him. So, lots of big names in that race.
Very good. And, your point is well taken. We need a GOP candidate in that House. And I like my politics. I like my wine red. I just think this election, a little zin is called for.
A little zin is called for. A little red zin, not white zin, right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, she was in the Octagon. We were at the Fusion Fights in Billings on Saturday night at the Metro, and Stacey was in the Octagon with Kyle Austin from Farm 406. I was kind of hoping there might be an actual extra MMA bout right then and there between Stacey and Kyle. Although, man, Stacey's like a jiu-jitsu expert, so probably a good thing that it wasn't an all-out bout there. Let's see. Next up, let's go to the mighty Human Z on the phone lines. What's going on, Z?
Great Lakes, greetings, gentlemen. Here at the Humanity Institute for Brandonomics, we're trying to educate people, and there's a new word out there that's going to help Biden get back in office called greedflation. Greedflation. So we're going to do match game 75, right? It goes like this. Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren said to Joe Biden, Brandon, greedflation has made your blank go down. Greedflation has made your blank go down. Ponder on that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, I was in the pool. I was in the pool, to use a Seinfeld reference there. Did you see the Wienermobile driving across Montana at all? The Oscar Mayer Wienermobile was out there. And I think it was Greg Franks who said, that Wienermobile needs to be about a third smaller in size. Because of inflation, you get less for the price of things anymore. So
isn't it great how the Biden regime just redefined inflation so they cannot count all the stuff that actually matters, like food and gasoline and all that stuff?
I was in the pool. Shrinkflation is what they call that. Yeah.
Talking about the issues that matter to Montana, statewide. This is Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
And when it comes to that Eastern congressional race, I tell you, Rick Holden out of Glendive, man, that voicing his radio commercials, what a great voice that is. I was listening to that. I was like, hey, that guy sounds kind of familiar. Anyway, a familiar voice on the airwaves in Glendive. Okay, going to sneak in a couple more calls, and then we've got our friend Henry Kriegel on the phone lines from Americans for Prosperity, Montana. He joins us about once a month on our statewide show for a few minutes, so we'll be catching up with him here in a second, and then back to your phone calls again after that. Chris in Columbia Falls next up. What did you want to share this morning?
Really big question. Who does this president take his orders from? He has flip-flopped so much, from Israel to a lot of other things lately. Now, he's listening to somebody else, and we shouldn't be listening to stuff like that. Our eyes should be fully open when it comes to vote. In the past, Franklin Roosevelt, was checked by his own party by trying to overload the court in his favor and was put down. Reparation policies? Yes, what about reparation policies? This week I heard $50 billion of freebies in Chicago. The misuse of immigration laws? That's unconstitutional. We all know it. This is what you need to become educated by. Executive orders, you can make a big question about that one, too.
That's
appalling. That's world order. That's world rule. And that's what I'm thinking a lot of this is coming from. There's the book again.
The globalists, the Soros crew, the Hans Wies crowd, the World Economic Forum. No, I think that's a very good point there. John, and Chris, thanks for the call. John Jackson, when he was saying, who does this president work for? Who does number 2 work for? I was thinking of an Austin Powers reference there, but you were raising your hand like you were the ladies on The View. You were so excited that like they were when they thought Trump was going to go to jail. Ooh, 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 ooh.
I'm Horseshack over there. Ooh, I know.
So who's the answer? Who does this president take orders from?
Barack Hussein Obama. This is nothing more than the third term of Barack Hussein Obama.
See, I was going to say Susan Rice, but she basically is the arm of former President Obama. Yeah, all right. Yeah, because she was she was overseeing foreign policy under Obama, but now she oversees it all under Biden. Susan in Missoula next up. Susan, thanks for the call. What's on your mind?
Well, I've been calling voters for Americans for Prosperity now for quite a number of months.
Awesome.
And I'm going to tell you right now, we as Republicans need to make sure that when we get a ballot in the mail from absentee, we fill it out and take it back to your local election office. Do not stop. Do not be sure to pass go, but don't wait until the election day to turn your absentee ballots in. We have the biggest mistake out there that some of our older voters think that we have to celebrate Election Day. The Democrats are not. And there are way too many things at stake, including our entire country. And Corey Swanson and Dan Wilson for Supreme Court are the two, even though they're nonpartisan, they are logical, and we need to vote for them. And if you have any questions about who to vote for in nonpartisan races, call the people in your community that you trust the most to give you advice. Don't fill out your ballot helter-skelter. And be sure to pick. There are 4 ballots in your envelope. We have 4 of them. So pick the Republican ballot in primary. Throw away the other ballots. Do not put them in your blue envelope.
Well, unless you're a Democrat who, or whichever. If you're a Democrat voting the Democrat ballot, whoever you are, you don't want to include more than the one ballot because we don't register by party. You have to pick one ballot and vote that ballot. But no, great points there, Susan. Thanks for calling in. And I'm with Susan. It's like I know there's a lot of people who really love to vote on Election Day, and it really is such an incredible American tradition. But look, if you vote early, you knock it out, you get it done, you leave nothing at risk. Then on Election Day, you can get out there and get your friends and neighbors out to the polls to vote. This election is so important. There's so much riding on that. In fact, on that note, Susan mentioned making phone calls on behalf of Americans for Prosperity Montana. Let's go to Henry Kriegel on the phone lines with Americans for Prosperity Montana. Henry, your thoughts on what Susan had to say?
I love the fact that Susan, as a volunteer, as we're making phone calls for us, she's doing a banged-up job. She's making phone calls for Americans for Prosperity Action in support of Tim Sheehy, which is awesome. We're doing this statewide. We got, as you know, we got offices in Bozeman, Billings, Helena, Great Falls, Kalispell, Missoula. We're everywhere. So thank you, Susan, for all your efforts and all your work. It's greatly appreciated. There's all kinds of opportunities for people to engage. I would just say this, guys. This is a very big time in our nation's history, and this is a top-tier race. It's evidence, Aaron, by the fact that John Tester, now I'm speaking on behalf of Americans for Prosperity, John Tester, you got to know he's in campaign season mode because he's offering bills to position himself again as a conservative, or at least a centrist Democrat. Just the other day, he introduced a balanced budget amendment bill, which does very little at all. This is just mere posturing. In order for, first of all, the Senate cannot amend the Constitution on its own. Okay, it takes 2/3 of the vote by both chambers, the House and Senate, and then 3/4 of the states have to convene and pass that amendment. So you can't do it by a simple majority. That's number one. Secondly, the bill allows for exemption during times of war. Now, will that be an excuse for Congress to declare war so they can continually spend in the deficit, spend us in the red every year? Well, we have wars going on all throughout the world, yet Congress at this point hasn't had the courage to declare war. Thirdly, it allows for a non-balanced budget during times of recession. It exempts Social Security and Medicare, which are a huge portion of the budget. And lastly, it also exempts for natural disasters, which is a major loophole. I think everything, including COVID or the next bird flu or whatever might be coming down the pike, will be called a natural disaster. So there's no real accountability there. This, Aaron, is all mere posturing because he's coming up for an election, and we are a center-right state. And it's about time that voters wake up to the fact that Tester does not represent the values of Montana. He might look like a Montanan, but he votes like an East or West Coast liberal.
I saw a tweet from Kurt Couchman talking about this balanced budget amendment that Tester just introduced. First off, just on the face of it, it's like you've been in office almost 2 decades. You've racked up trillions of dollars in debt, from $6 trillion to nearly $35 trillion. And now you're finally talking about a balanced budget amendment. But Kurt Couchman says that this is the most feckless, worst designed balanced budget amendment he's seen in 14 years of balanced budget amendment work. It is so basically like he's just trying to get a headline from friendly media outlets here to make it look like he cares about balancing the budget. John Jackson, the Joker, and I were joking during one of the breaks, like, by the end of the week, John Tester's probably going to be wearing a red Donald Trump hat to make people think that he supports Trump. He'll have a Trump socks, a Trump tie,
Oh, yeah, he'll also probably be quoting Reagan by the time we're done with this thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but but that's what's happening. And then, of course, he flip-flopped on the Laken-Riley Act. He voted against the Laken-Riley Act just about a month ago. But now he says if the bill makes it to the floor, he'll vote in support of it. But Chuck Schumer has already said he's not going to allow the bill to make it to the floor. So I see what you did there, John. I see what you did.
Nice posturing, and he put out the ad with some local law enforcement official who was in uniform, which I think is against a state law to use his uniform for political purposes. To claim that he was, great support of local law enforcement and wanted to secure the border. It's all just theatrics. He's like, he's a caricature, and he's got great handlers. He runs a mean, tough campaign. But I'll tell you this, now speaking on behalf of AFP Action, he's run up against a tough candidate in Tim Sheehy. He's thrown everything at Tim, trying to denigrate his war record, trying to denigrate his business dealings. He's got these front people who are Democrats, ranchers, attacking him for what he does with his ranch and how he promotes it with his veteran buddy. He makes the false claims that it's Tim Sheehy who's driving up property taxes. Let me tell you something about Tim Sheehy and his businesses. He's made people millionaires here in Gallatin County.
Fellow veterans.
Students, and veterans. He's also created over 500 high-paying jobs, many of them in the state of Montana. He's made his money in the state of Montana, working hard, providing a valued service for our state, putting out wildfires, and raising, 2,000 head of cattle up there in eastern Montana. I would like to compare that track record of providing real service and value to Montanans versus John Tester's 17 years in office as senator.
Any day of the week, that's right. All right, Henry Kriegel, hold that thought. We'll get some final thoughts from you right after this. Some more thoughts from Henry Kriegel with Americans for Prosperity Montana. Then we'll jump into your phone calls, and we've got John Jackson, the Joker from Twitter, sidekicking with us. The one story I want to get to, and on top of your calls and everything else, the nonprofits profiting from Biden's border crisis. Wait till you hear these numbers.
This is where Montana Talks Ag with Lane Nordlund.
The latest USDA crop progress report is out, and for the national winter wheat condition rating, 18% of the crop is rated poor to very poor, while the good to excellent rating remains at 50%. Here in the Big Sky State, a slight improvement in the poor to very poor rating this week, rating 17%. Poor to very poor, 31% of the crop rated fair, with 52% of the winter wheat rated good to excellent.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll be part of the nation's oldest and largest national cattle industry organization that has a professional team working in Washington, D.C. on issues that matter to cattle-producing families nationwide. Don't stay on the sidelines. Make your voice heard by joining NCBA today at the website ncba.org.
From winter wheat to spring wheat now, 61% of the nation's spring wheat crop has been planted. In Montana, the pace a little ahead of the national average. As of Sunday, farmers planted 63% of the spring wheat across the Big Sky State. As for sugar beet planting, USDA reports 70% of the crop was planted, but I'm guessing with all the rain and flooding that we had last week, a lot of that crop will have to be replanted across Montana. I'm Link.
This is where Montana talks. Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
All right. Hey, we got phone lines open for you, 406-294-0970. We're going to jump right back into your phone calls here in just a second. But first, this recent segment here brought to you by Americans for Prosperity Montana. I want to go back to Henry Kriegel. Henry, any final thoughts for our listeners across the state, especially, Susan was talking about volunteer opportunities. I know you guys have a massive effort underway on that front.
We do. Here, my final thoughts are this. What's causing inflation is reckless spending. And I just want to read you a brief quote from the Zero Hedge article this morning about spending. It took the federal government 224 years, the Louisiana Purchase, the Civil War, and 2 world wars to rack up the first $5.7 trillion in red ink, and it took Biden just 3 years to do that now. So we need to fight back, and we need to elect good people to office who will fight for Montanans. That's why AFP Action is out there in virtually every city in the state of Montana. Look us up, infomt@afphq.org, and volunteer today with people like Susan and make a difference.
All right, Henry Kriegel, thanks for your time. Great to catch up with you as always. All right, John Jackson, before I get to a couple more callers here, in the queue, massive story. I don't know if you saw this one yet. Washington Examiner, the nonprofit organizations profiting from Biden's border crisis. Basically, they detail, this is a report by the Free Press, not to be confused with that liberal newspaper outfit called the Montana Free Press. This is a separate organization, the Free Press. According to an examination by the Free Press of 3 of the most prominent nonprofit organizations paid by the Biden administration for migrant services, their revenues have more than tripled since 2018, and each of their CEOs makes more than $500,000 a year. Nonprofit organizations trafficking migrants into this country, they're raking in tens of millions of dollars, and their CEOs make more than $500,000 a year. It's a whole scam.
Well, like Henry Kriegel just pointed out there, all the money that's going right down the drain. Now, we sent a Republican House there to 2022 here 2 years ago to do what? To stop Joe Biden. And they have been responsible for the last 2 years of funding all of these NGOs, fully funding the Biden budget and the Biden agenda. And again, that rolls right back to what we were saying earlier. You have to know who you are voting for in these elections. We cannot put any more rhinos in there.
Well, but frankly, the bigger picture is we control 1/3 of the chambers back there right now. And so, and that's why, Donald Trump, Montanans are overwhelmingly going to vote in support of Donald Trump. We know that's going to happen again this November. But if Chuck Schumer still controls the Senate, and actually Democrats are more concerned about losing the Senate now. They actually are confident that they might gain control of the House now as a result of all the House Republican turmoil. So they're more fearful of losing the Senate right now. Anyway, we'll talk more about this. I'll share some more numbers here in just a second as well. But next up on the phone lines, let's go to Lawrence Anderson out of Missoula. And Larry, great to hear from you, my friend, and thanks for your service.
Yes, thank you for yours. Can you hear me, Aaron?
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead. What did you want to share?
Okay, good. Yes, I want to make a very important announcement about a hearing coming up in the State Administration and Veterans Affairs Committee. It's going to be held on May 23rd, and in the afternoon, we will be talking about the RTM protocol, Reconsolidation of Traumatic Memories. It's a very promising therapy for folks suffering from PTSD, and it's very quick. It doesn't use drugs, and it has between an 80 70 to 80% success rate for being able to recall those memories without the emotions attached to them. And I will be introducing Dr. Robert Burke, who has been working on this since 2001, the 9/11 disaster, and treating people for PTSD. If you folks would like to attend in person, that hearing will be held in the Capitol at room 137, and we will be coming on about 4:30 in the afternoon. I'll be introducing Dr. Robert Burke, and he will be doing a presentation. If you go to the website, the agenda on there will be shown, and you can even check in via Zoom.
Perfect. Well, and and Larry, I know we've been emailing back and forth because I do want to get you on the show in advance of that hearing to talk at more length about this RTM protocol. So, but thanks for calling in also quickly today just to get that hearing on folks' radar. Send us the link to that hearing, and then we can share the info on our website as well so that folks can just go there, click on it, find all the information. Larry Anderson, thanks for calling in. Sneak in another caller here, then we'll bring in the Joker from Twitter. Tom in Bozeman, what's on your mind?
Hey, Aaron, Tom, how you doing?
Doing great.
Did you get Kevin's print up on the wall in your office?
I've got the poster here, the signed poster of Kevin Redstar's incredible painting. It's still wrapped, though. I got to figure out where I'm going to put it and make it look nice. Yeah.
I'm looking at the Gallatin County ballot. We've got a few commission questions for the review of the government Gallatin County additional property taxes for a local government study commission consisting of 7 members to examine the government of Gallatin County. There's one for the city and one for the county. You know, I was talking to a police department official yesterday, and he said, Tom, you know, our city commission, it's impossible, to work with these people because they're all a bunch of liberals. We get people come in who have more money than brains, and all they want, like the typical Democrat, is power and to foist their twisted beliefs upon the rest of the people in the community. So these people, with nothing better to do, while we're out trying to make a living, they run for city commission and school board and county commission and everything else. And then first thing you know, all the people in the community are, so what's going on around here? And, now they want to raise taxes for a study commission. I don't know what this stuff is all about. They hire to pat them on the back while we pay taxes, and they are in a self-congratulatory manner, pat themselves in the back for the good job they're doing. I mean,
well, and remember the city manager, the city administrator for Bozeman. He got busted on that Zoom call talking about getting his FU money from the people of Bozeman. John Jackson. I don't know if you remember this story. He turned down a $500,000 a year job in Austin, Texas, because he wanted to wait and get his FU money from the taxpayers in Bozeman. Do you remember that one?
No, but your caller hits this right on the head, and people kind of been waking up to this the last maybe 10 years. In fact, that all of us, conservative people out here and normal moderate people, you just go about your lives and work at your job and raise your kids, and you didn't pay attention to politics because they'll get it done. It always gets done, right? It always works out. Well, not anymore.
You got to pay attention at every level now.
For liberals, politics is life, and they are out there doing this for a living, and we've got to get right in there with them and do it too, or they're going to occupy every position of power and control all of it, whether you like it or not.
Now, one thing I would say, though, about these local government reviews, I'm going to get more information on this soon, because I know for our Billings radio station listeners, David Goodridge has been leading kind of an effort for some time to where, like I said, I'll get more information on this, but I understand that some of the folks, like, for example, because Billings voters have something like that on their ballots as well, it'll probably go down in defeat because you're asking to raise people property taxes to pay for these government study reviews, which my thing is shouldn't there be normal audits and reviews of government anyway without charging us extra? I mean, businesses get audited all the time, but the reason why they want to review and do a study of the city government in particular is because I think there's a lot of people that want to reform the way the city of Billings is organized. You do not need that many city council members for the city of Billings. There's no reason you need this many city council members, and maybe we need an elected mayor instead of a unelected city administrator. So I know there's some folks talking about that, but I think it's probably going to go down because people don't want to pay any dollar more in property taxes.
Well, unless it's got the force of law behind it, that they can make them change, it ain't worth the paper it's printed on.
But people do want to see a change, that's for sure. Yeah. All right.
Broadcasting live across the great state of Montana, powered by the Montana Electric Cooperative Association. Your Montana Electric Cooperative, they do much more than keep the lights on for you. This is Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
John, I'm trying to perfect that fake TV news anchor. Well, John, remember on the Daily Show back then? John, we've got, anyway... John Jackson, the Joker from Twitter. The reason we call him the Joker is he is at Private Joker on Twitter, at PVT Joker US on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it these days. So back to this story about these nonprofit organizations that are profiting from Biden's border crisis. Global Refuge saw its revenue rise from $50 million in 2018 to more than $200 million in 2022. Get this, Global Refuge CEO Krish Omara Vignaraja saw her salary rise from $244,000 a year to $520,000. Before coming to Global Refuge, she served as former First Lady Michelle Obama's policy director. Big surprise there, huh?
Well,
big surprise
look at
there.
That. What these people are doing is really just beyond evil. They are funding the invasion of our country. These are not scholars and doctors and lawyers coming in here. These are the refuge of the third world. They're emptying their prisons, they're emptying their insane asylums and sending them our way. And you're seeing it all. I mean, I can pull up right now, just go down my Twitter feed, and I can pull you up 5 different incidents right now in these blue cities of these people attacking, mugging, robbing, raping, shooting, you name it. And every single one of them you pull up, illegals, band of illegals. I mean, this is just the worst evil you can imagine these people are perpetrating on our society.
All right, let's go to another caller on the phone lines. Chris in Billings. Did you have something quick for us?
Yeah, I heard something the other day that kind of encompasses everything. If Trump wasn't running, he would not be on trial. I think that's a true statement.
Yeah, most likely.
You know what
right?
I'm saying?
I mean, I don't know. They have such a hatred for the guy that I don't know, will they ever let it go? But all these trials, all these indictments, they didn't really start until after he declared he was running for president, right?
There you go. Yep.
And now the ladies on The View, the women on The View, they're mad that his trials are getting all this media attention because they've realized that it's actually helping him now. So now they don't want the coverage anymore.
That's right. I'm a long-time listener. I don't get a chance to call that much, but thanks, Aaron.
Hey, thank you. Well, great to hear from you. I appreciate it. All right, next up, we got a caller from, I think, Eastern Montana, who we see from on X or Twitter from time to time. She's calling in from Eastern Montana, goes by the name on Twitter, Tester Will Not Be Elected. Good to hear from you.
Thank you for having me on, Aaron. And I just want to say thank you to all our men and women in uniform. Thank you for your service. But, I'm on Twitter this morning like usual, and I'm seeing the Democrats just trying to call out Tim Sheehy because he won't release his medical records from this, gunshot wound and all this stuff. And I just wanted to point out how big of a how far of a contrast that is, considering that group wants everybody to stay out of the doctor's office, right? I thought they wanted everybody out of the doctor's office. So why are they turning around and just trying to pummel Tim Sheehy because he won't release his medical records? He doesn't have to do that.
Well, it's absurd. Yeah, I want John Tester to release his citation and his narrative for his Bronze Star for Valor. I want John Tester to release his narrative for his Purple Heart. Oh, that's right. He doesn't have either of those, does he, John Jackson?
I wanted to see Barack Obama's college records, but I've never seen any of those. And here's the thing with these calls, in big quotes, calls from the left and calls from the Democrats. Give them nothing. Okay, I don't care what they ask for. Don't give them anything, because you know why? If that was you asking John Tester for something, you would get exactly jack and squat.
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of us want to know, how did he become so much wealthier? I mean, John Tester inherited everything that he has, but yet he didn't really become, as wealthy as he is right now until he got elected as a United States Senator. I mean, we know how Tim Sheehy made his money. He served his country in the military. He came home. He started businesses. He started an aerial firefighting business. He started a military drone technology business that was very successful. He made a lot of his fellow veterans very successful in the process. We know how he made his money. How did John Tester make all that money?
Well, to be fair, let's be fair to Big John. He did start up that chain of CrossFit gyms. So, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in that fitness, and John Tester is all about fitness.
Hey, by the way, did you see the quote from President Trump where he was mocking John Tester? Now, a lot of folks in the media, they were clutching pearls. He said some insensitive remarks about John Tester. When I looked at the quote, now they won't release the audio. I wish they'd release the audio, but it looks like he's mocking Democrats for believing that men can get pregnant. He wasn't just saying that John Tester looks pregnant. He was mocking the idea that Democrats think men can get pregnant.
Well, these knuckleheads, instead of just being quiet about it, they call attention to it, which makes everybody listen to it more and laugh at what Trump said about Tester.
Well, that's true. And I think, 16 years ago, being Big John was endearing to some people, but now he's just a big Washington fat cat living high on the hog while the rest of folks struggle because of inflation and open borders and everything else. So,
$1.2 million spent in D.C. restaurants.
At the Bistro Cacao. And the Bistro B, to be fair.